Kyoto, late Muromachi period. A wooden dojo before dawn. One candle burns at the far wall. The young samurai kneels across from his opponent. Witnesses line the room. No one speaks. Judgment is already present. His hand rests near the sword. His breath shortens. His shoulders rise, then lock. He knows the forms. He has repeated them until his body ached. He has studied the code until it felt unquestionable. The signal will come. Time stretches. Thought enters where it is not needed. If he moves too early, he risks error. If he waits, he gains certainty. The space between those choices tightens. The scrolls demanded decisiveness. The body demanded movement. He searches for the correct moment. It does not arrive. He hesitates. The strike comes first, not fast, just earlier. The wooden blade meets his shoulder. The sound is dull, final. No one reacts. There is nothing to say. He bows, heat rising in his chest. Not from pain, but from recognition. A warrior does not fall because he lacks strength. He falls because he waits. This failure was not about skill. It was about delay. A rule would be carved into him. Most people believe decision is a mental process, a weighing of options, a calculation that ends in action. That belief is why they hesitate. Action does not follow clarity. Clarity follows action. The Japanese understood this distinction long before modern language softened it. They called it Shunkan Kettei, Shunjan Jueding, instant decision. Most people misunderstand this rule. They assume it means impulsiveness, recklessness, or acting without thought. It does not. Shunkan Kettei is the discipline of moving before hesitation can organize itself, before the mind begins negotiating safety, comfort, or certainty. It is measured in seconds, not confidence. In the dojo, delay was treated as a form of disobedience, not because warriors were impatient, but because every pause trained the body to wait. Waiting felt responsible. It felt controlled. It felt intelligent. But it produced the same outcome every time. Effort stalled. Presence fractured. The moment passed. The first move was not about speed. It was about authority. Who commands the moment? You or your hesitation? Without this rule, discipline decays into planning. Preparation becomes avoidance, and intention never survives contact with pressure. To understand why this rule mattered so deeply, you must see what hesitation costs when it is left unchallenged. Chapter 1. The moment before the blade. The samurai was not careless. He was known for his discipline. He arrived before the others and left after they were gone. He cleaned the floor when training ended. He repeated forms long after correction stopped. In the quiet hours, his movements were exact, measured, controlled. Teachers noted his diligence. But diligence does not decide moments. This morning was different. The test did not come from his instructor. It came from his lord. A simple exchange ordered without warning, meant to be observed and remembered. There would be no second attempt, no allowance for nerves. The wooden floor pressed cold against his knees. The candle at the far wall held steady, refusing to flicker. Across from him, his opponent waited, still, unhurried, already settled into the moment. The samurai felt the weight of being watched, not loudly, quietly, the way judgment always arrives. He knew the form required. He had practiced it until fatigue erased doubt. Yet when the moment approached, something fractured. His mind began to work. If I move now, I may misread his intent. If I wait, I will see more. The thought felt responsible. It felt disciplined. His breathing shortened. His shoulders rose, then locked. The signal was coming. Time stretched, thin and dangerous. He searched for certainty, for the exact instant when action would feel justified. The code was clear. A warrior does not wait for permission from thought. He acts when the moment arrives. The signal was given. Nothing happened. Not because he was afraid of pain, not because he doubted his strength. He doubted his timing. That fraction of delay widened, just enough. His opponent stepped in. The samurai reacted late, his body chasing a moment already gone. The wooden blade struck his shoulder, sharp and final. The sound echoed once, then disappeared. No one moved. No one spoke. He bowed automatically, heat rising in his chest. Not from the blow, but from recognition. He had watched himself hesitate. This was not an isolated failure. It appeared during drills when commands changed suddenly. It appeared in sparring when pressure arrived without warning. It appeared whenever action demanded a first move. He prepared thoroughly. He analyzed deeply. And then he waited. The waiting was invisible from the outside. Inside, it was decisive. He replayed the moment again and again, the space where action should have been. He hesitated. The failure did not come from ignorance. He knew exactly what to do. It came from delay. The sword had made that unmistakable. Whatever held him back lived before motion, not within it. And until that was confronted, no refinement of technique would save him. Chapter 2. Diagnosis without comfort. The master did not step forward when the exchange ended. He remained near the doorway as the others filed out, their footsteps soft, deliberate. No one lingered. The outcome required no discussion. When the room was empty, the master moved. He did not ask what the samurai felt. He did not comment on the strike. He looked once at the young man's posture, then away. "You arrive late," the master said, "to your own actions." The words were quiet. They were not offered for comfort. The samurai waited, expecting correction. None came. Later, in the outer courtyard, the master spoke again. Morning light had begun to settle, indifferent to what had just occurred. "You are not weak," he said. "You are divided," and that was all. The samurai stood in silence, searching for meaning where none was explained. Then the lesson came, brief and unyielding. You do not lack discipline. You lack decision. Knowing what should be done does not command the body. Thinking does not move the feet. Your enemy is not the man across from you. It is the pause you protect. You were defeated before the blade left its place. The verdict was not harsh. It was precise. The master did not explain how to correct this. He did not outline a path or soften the truth. He let the words stand as they were. The samurai understood something then. This flaw would not resolve itself with time. It would not disappear through effort alone. It would follow him into every moment that demanded a first move. Understanding the diagnosis was immediate. Living with its consequences would not be. The master turned away. The path forward was now visible, stripped of illusion. It was narrow, and it would not wait for him to feel ready. Chapter 3. The modern mirror. Marcus sits at his desk before sunrise. The room is quiet. The screen is already on. The task is clear. One document to begin. One message to send. One decision that has been delayed too long. He does not start. He adjusts his chair, straightens the stack of papers beside his keyboard, opens his inbox to make sure nothing urgent arrived overnight. Nothing has. The file remains unopened. He tells himself he is preparing. That beginning without clarity would be irresponsible. He rereads the brief, checks a detail he already knows, opens a browser tab to confirm something that does not change the task. Minutes pass without friction. There is no anxiety yet, no panic, only a quiet postponement that feels reasonable. He decides to make coffee first. Then he will start. When he returns, the moment has shifted. The work feels heavier than it did earlier. The simplicity is gone. By mid-morning, urgency replaces calm. By early afternoon, he avoids the task entirely. He answers messages that do not matter, cleans his workspace, schedules future time to focus properly. Nothing dramatic happens. No one confronts him. No deadline is missed that day. But something erodes. The message he meant to send remains unsent. The decision he needed to make waits another cycle. Momentum drains without resistance. This is not unfamiliar. The names change. The projects change. The pattern does not. Marcus shows up early. He stays late. He cares about the outcome. But when action demands a first move, he pauses. The delay compounds quietly. By the end of the week, he carries a low, constant dissatisfaction, not stress, something duller. He knows he could have acted sooner. He knows the cost was unnecessary. That knowledge does nothing. You've lived this. The moment appears. You hesitate, not because you are incapable, because you wait. The cost does not arrive immediately. It accumulates. And hesitation, practiced daily, begins to feel like judgment rather than avoidance. Chapter 4. The rule of Shunkan Kettei. The master did not explain the failure again. He did not revisit the duel or soften the verdict. He gave a rule. When the task appears, he said, you move within 3 seconds. Nothing followed that sentence. No justification, no warning. 3 seconds. Not to choose the best action, not to feel prepared, to move before hesitation could take shape. The rule was absolute. When training began each morning, the samurai was not permitted to ready himself. Preparation was forbidden. The moment the signal appeared, movement was required. If the sword needed to be lifted, it was lifted. If a step was required, it was taken. If the body resisted, the body moved anyway. The first days were brutal. His mind reacted instantly. This is careless. This ignores discipline. This will produce mistakes. The rule did not respond. Each session followed the same structure. 10 minutes where stopping was forbidden, not to improve performance, to eliminate negotiation. Once movement began, it could not be paused to correct the beginning. No restarting, no adjusting posture to feel aligned, no waiting for clarity. Action first, correction later. By the 3rd day, resistance sharpened. He began bargaining with seconds. I'll move, just not yet. 1 breath, 1 adjustment. That pause broke the rule. The master said nothing. The session reset. The cost was immediate. The day's work doubled. By the 5th day, the arguments changed. Fear gave way to irritation. Irritation gave way to fatigue. The mind continued to protest, but its objections became repetitive. Every morning, the same demand. Every morning, the same refusal to negotiate. There was no sense of progress, no marker of improvement, only repetition. On the 7th day, the pain dulled, not because it disappeared, but because it no longer mattered. By the 9th day, boredom replaced struggle. The rule felt mechanical, uninteresting, unforgiving. That was its purpose. Shunkan Kettei was not meant to inspire. It was meant to outlast resistance. On the 11th day, he broke the rule again, not from defiance, from habit. The consequence returned without comment. The rule did not care how long he had trained. It did not soften with effort. By the 14th day, something fundamental eroded. Not fear, not doubt, expectation. He stopped waiting for the moment to feel right. He moved while it felt wrong. The first action lost its emotional weight. It became procedural. The master did not praise this. He did not correct technique during this phase. The training was not designed to build confidence. It was designed to remove delay. The samurai began to see the structure clearly. Hesitation was not an emotion. It was a sequence. Thought, Justification. Pause. Shunkan Kettei severed that sequence at the start. It did not require belief. It required obedience. And obedience, repeated under constraint, began to reorganize him, not into someone fearless, into someone who moved on time. The rule remained simple. Living under it was not. But it was no longer optional. Chapter 5. The unannounced test. The test did not announce itself. It arrived without ceremony, folded into an ordinary training day. No warning, no explanation. A command was given while attention was elsewhere. Eyes turned. The room tightened. This was the kind of moment that had defeated him before. Public, immediate, unforgiving. The old impulse rose on time. A brief internal pause pressed forward, offering caution. Wait. Assess. Choose carefully. His body moved before the thought finished forming. Not cleanly, not confidently, but immediately. He stepped forward without rehearsing the motion. The action was exposed, imperfect, difficult to reverse. Silence followed. No correction came. No acknowledgement. He stood there, breath uneven, aware of every eye on him. The discomfort was sharp. Had he waited, he could have selected a safer response. Had he delayed, he could have protected himself from error. Instead, he stood inside the consequences of acting early, visible, unshielded. Nothing dramatic happened. The moment passed. Training continued. No one spoke of it afterward. But the outcome was clear. The hesitation that once decided for him had been cut off before it could take control. The rule had held, not because pressure was absent, but because action arrived first. Chapter 6. Quiet shift. The change did not arrive with certainty. There was no moment he could point to and claim as transformation. Time passed. Training continued. The rule remained. What changed was not how he felt. It was what happened first. When moments arrived that once demanded negotiation, his body no longer waited for agreement. His feet moved before his thoughts assembled resistance. His hands acted before doubt completed its argument. Hesitation still appeared. So did fatigue. So did uncertainty. But they arrived late. Before, delay entered immediately and took control of the moment. Now it followed, unable to interrupt what had already begun. His movements were not sharper. They were earlier. This altered the rhythm of his days. He no longer stood at the edge of action, preparing to step forward. He stepped, then adjusted. Errors still occurred. Exposure remained. But delay had lost its authority. The struggle did not disappear. It relocated. The effort was no longer spent deciding whether to act. It was spent enduring the discomfort of acting without guarantees. This work was quieter. There was no recognition from others, no visible marker of progress. Yet under pressure, something held. When commands arrived without warning, his body responded. When attention turned toward him, he did not search for permission. He remained human, capable of mistake, subject to fatigue. But the pause that once governed him no longer led. The path did not end here. The rule still demanded obedience. What had changed was simple and severe. He no longer waited for the moment to allow him to act. Chapter 7. The pattern everywhere. This pattern does not belong to the dojo. It appears wherever a first move is required and pressure is real. It shows up at work as preparation that never ends. Research replaces action. Clarity is postponed until momentum expires. It shows up in health as delayed beginnings. Plans are made carefully. Execution is deferred indefinitely. It shows up in relationships as conversations rehearsed but never started. Words are refined. Silence is chosen because it feels safer than consequence. The setting changes. The sequence does not. A moment arrives. Hesitation enters. Delay feels responsible. Time passes. What follows is not relief. It is erosion. Self-trust weakens each time the first move is postponed. Confidence thins, not from failure, but from avoidance. Energy drains without effort ever being spent. This is why capable people stall, not because they lack intelligence or discipline, because they practice waiting. Delay disguises itself as professionalism, as caution, as restraint. It rarely announces itself as fear. Instead, it wears reasonable language. Not yet, after more thought, when conditions improve. The cost accumulates quietly. Decisions remain open longer than they should. Opportunities lose urgency. Days flatten into repetition. The same failure appears in leadership, in creativity, in personal authority. You prepare to step forward, but never claim the moment. Over time, hesitation stops feeling like a choice. It becomes a default response. The body learns to pause. The mind learns to justify. Eventually, delay no longer feels wrong. It feels normal. This is how momentum dies without collapse. This is how discipline dissolves without resistance. The first move is where authority is decided. When it is surrendered, everything else follows. Until something interrupts that sequence, the pattern repeats everywhere, quietly, consistently, without exception. If you are willing to live under a rule that allows no negotiation, step closer and walk this path. If you are still waiting for comfort, clarity, or permission, leave this here and continue as you are. Decide within 3 seconds, or let hesitation decide the rest for you.